everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Number One Comics Podcast. I'm your host, Jonah. With me is my co-host, Bill. Bill, how's it going?
Not too bad, Jonah.
Oh, man, I was afraid you were going to say horrible. And then you're going to,
It's been a hell of a week, Jonah.
Has it?
Yeah.
Well, welcome. Glad you could join me on this. Yeah. And as you can see on the table here, we are talking about Strikeforce. You have to, the whole time, you've got to say it like that.
Strikeforce.
Strikeforce. This issue was published by Marvel Comics November of 2019. Had a cover price of $3.99. The writer was Teenie Howard, and Jermaine Peralta is the artist on this. This is, in my opinion, kind of Marvel's version of a Justice League Dark, which we've talked about Justice League Dark in a previous episode. Mm-hmm. This features characters like Blade, Angela, Damon Hellstrom, Spectrum, a.k.a. Monica Rambeau, Spider-Woman, Wiccan, and the Winter Soldier. When Marvel announced this series, they hailed it as the team that is doing the dirty jobs the Avengers and other Marvel heroes can't do. Now, I don't know exactly what that means, but that's what they positioned this as. And it was all coming from the dark mind of rising star Teenie Howard was the sort of marketing spiel for this. The cover features our core cast of characters leaping off the page by the always awesome Mike Deodato Jr. He's always been one of my favorite artists. So that is an awesome cover. Full disclosure, I bought this book not knowing anything about it. I simply bought it because of you put Blade on the cover. I'm probably going to pick it up and check it out. And I ended up getting all the issues to this, but it was all because of the cover is the whole reason I bought it. Never heard of it. Didn't know anything about the story.
Yeah.
Throw Blade on there and I'm going to get it. There's a few other characters like that. Do you have any characters like that? Are there characters that you throw on? I know you said before you throw Spider-Man on the cover, young girl is probably going to buy it.
I would say Spider-Man, Ghost Rider was a big one for me in the 90s. Probably Punisher, because shit's going to go down.
Yep.
With the Punishers on it. Daredevil was another big one.
For me, Ghost Rider, for sure. Sleepwalker, you put him on the cover, I'm going to buy it.
Definitely.
Blade, as I'd mentioned, you put him on the cover, I'm probably going to check it out. Deathlock, you put Deathlock on the cover.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, it might already be out by the time this this episode comes out, but they're doing a... with Captain America Brave and the Bold, they're going to do a Red Hulk series. I don't give a shit about Red Hulk, but Machine Man and Deathlock are in like that first story arc.
Ooh.
And so I'm going to at least have to buy the first, 5 or 6 issues because of them.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But there's a handful of characters as well where if you throw them on the cover, I'll buy it sight unseen. So, all right. Let's dive into the issue, give you a rundown of this. We're going to open up with a group of characters. I don't really see who they are. They're breaking into a bioweapons lab, and they're gathering vials of various viruses, diseases, etc. There's alarm sounding in the background, and then there's like a notification of quarantine procedures going into effect, and outside the compound, the Avengers have arrived on site. This includes Black Panther, Iron Man, Captain Marvel, She-Hulk, and Ghost Rider. Not the one who I would buy if he was on the cover, but a different Ghost Rider.
Right.
He's not one of the cool ones, in my opinion. But he's the one that's piloting the ship. Black Panther, a.k.a. T'Challa, he informs the others that they were called to the lab by the ranking officer after vials of virulent diseases vanished from the lab. Once inside, the team is approached by a group of frenzied guards. The same pathogen affects the She-Hulk as well, and so she kind of goes on a frenzied rampage. She busts through a wall and goes for a fridge. She's babbling about hearing friends that she knows, and she tosses the fridge through a wall. She's continuing to talk like a caveman for some reason, or a child rather, saying, "They do bad things, and we know them. We know bad people this time." The team catches up to her, and on the other side of the wall that she had smashed through, they find a group of their friends. So they find Monica Rambeau, Angela, Winter Soldier, Spider-Woman, and Wiccan. The Avengers report back to the officers in charge at the compound that they found the missing samples, and as for the suspects, they're being apprehended. We then cut back to the Avengers headquarters, where Captain America, Iron Man, and Captain Marvel, they're trying to figure out what happened. There's no evidence of mind control. Skrulls have always been very popular as far as impersonating heroes. Mm-hmm. The guards in She-Hulk were exposed to the airborne rabies virus, which I didn't know that rabies was airborne.
I didn't either.
That's a terrifying thought. In this world, it evidently is. And the suspects were exposed to it as well, but there's no trace of the virus in their blood. Iron Man asks if they should call in Doctor Strange for help, but T'Challa kind of chimes in saying that he's called Blade, and Blade said that they really need to trust him and just let him do his work. And again, I don't really know what that means. Inside a holding room or an interrogation room, the captured suspects, they're quipping back and forth with one another about being hungry, using magic to conjure up some pizza. They also discuss how they have no idea how they got there, but they're pretty much certain that they were framed for this crime. Blade drops into the room. He dismantles the security cameras in the process for some privacy. He states that he knows what they're dealing with, and some of them are out of their league. Blade tells them to come with him, and he'll tell them what he can. This leads to a flashback of Blade in Berlin encountering a young woman surrounded by a trio of vampires. Blade takes out 2 of the vampires, while the girl takes care of the third by ripping him in 2. Blade responds to her by cutting her in half. This reveals her to be a shapeshifter. And it's the kind of shapeshifter that kidnaps and hides its victim away, but they're otherwise unharmed. Blade finds the real young woman in a dumpster and carries her off to safety. He had gotten the event out of his head until he got to the Avengers base and saw all of them, and then all of these thoughts and feelings evidently come rushing back. They teleport into the jungle of Indonesia. The entire premise is essentially summed up by Wiccan saying, so mystical shapeshifters kidnapped them all, broke into the lab, stole the samples, then left them there to take the fall. And that's, seriously, that is the entire setup to the story. Mm-hmm. Questioning why they're there in Indonesia, Blade explains that after he killed one of the shapeshifters, he took a sample of it to Stark and T'Challa to make a gadget that's able to track these spore things, is what he calls it. And when they got into trouble, the signal led them to this location in Indonesia. And no, seriously, again, that sounds very strange. That's exactly what he did, because of comics, I guess. He didn't tell the Avengers because whatever he saw had gotten into his head, chewing up his mind just from seeing it. And how messed up would it be if it was in all of the Avengers' heads, I guess. Wiccan recognizes the place as the Fortress of the Vistani, where Doctor Strange had once fought Doctor Doom. Speaking of Doom, he suddenly appears out of nowhere, but the team recognizes that it's probably not him. Angela leaps at him, cutting him to pieces, revealing his little purplish inside. However, somehow the team doesn't notice this because Angela tells him, oh, no, it's just a Doom bot. She then pulls Blade aside and tells him the sample that he had, and what she's holding grows only in... And I'm totally going to say this wrong because I'm not good at pronouncing Norse words. Svartalfheim.
Sure.
All right.
Svartalfheim.
Someone out there is yelling at their computer right now or in their phone.
No.
It's not how it's pronounced.
Nerd.
She calls the culprits the twisting fae of Svartalfheim. She goes on to say, they grow in dark caves, formless, away from the light, but learn to take the features of... whatever features they want, essentially. She goes on to say that when her mom destroyed the Black Bifrost Bridge, which was evidently seen in another story that I had not read, it must have scattered those spores to Earth, and they had somehow ended up on Earth. As Blade and Angela talk, they wander into the entrance of the fortress. She continues to explain that Blade was right to keep it from the Avengers because the Vridae are a virus of thought, and they must be known to their victim in order for them to take over their victim.
Okay.
I'm going to just keep talking. They can transform into someone that they've captured, but they have to capture the person in order for them to transform into them. The two are then jumped by a group of the Vridae, and the two fight back, and they're eventually aided by the others. The group wanders deeper into the temple. They come upon Count Ophidian, a changeling keen of the Vridae. The Count's very own Bib Fortuna stand-in claims he was born the Serpent Prince in the first hour of the year's dark half, unseelie monarch and breaker of the minds of many. And that's seriously what they say. As if, I don't know, someone watched too much Game of Thrones.
Yep.
Blade has heard enough, and he leaps towards the Count, ready to strike him down, only to be stopped by a magical force field. The Count summons an aide who appears over Blade, and it's Damon Hellstrom. Wiccan is trying to break through the force field with his own magical powers as Angela tries to warn him off. Hellstrom intercepts Wiccan's attack. Monica Rambeau tries to absorb the energy force field, which proves overpowering for her. Hellstrom looms over her, but is stabbed in the chest by Blade. Blade had assumed that Damon was a shapeshifter, but that doesn't turn out to be the case, as at that very moment, Blade gets a phone call, and it's Damon's sister. She basically tells Blade that her brother had just shown up at her Vegas nightclub, and that he's acting very strangely, and that's where we end this off, and it is to be continued. Bill, what are your thoughts on this? I've got my own thoughts. What are yours?
Well, I think it is a cool concept. I think the team that they've got for this is pretty cool. I do see the kind of parallels of it being Marvel's Justice League Dark kind of thing. I do like the fact that Blade's the team leader.
I like that
essentially. I think that's cool to see him in a leadership
especially when
role.
you've got like someone like Monica Rambeau and the Winter Soldier. Having Blade be the leader of the team is a very cool touch.
Yeah, and I think he's one of those characters that's just he's seen a lot more shit than a lot of them have.
Yeah.
So he's kind of like, this is just a Tuesday for me.
Especially when it comes
it's fine,
to kind of the underside of the Marvel Universe, the dark underbelly. Yeah. So a couple of things that I want to point out real quick before I get into how much I did not like this.
Okay.
When this came out in 2019, I was just getting back into comics. And like I said, I picked it up just based on the cover. I missed out on Marvel's Civil War II event, which that actually sounds like a good thing anyway.
Yeah.
And I guess it was in that series that Bruce Banner, a.k.a. the Hulk, was killed. And so She-Hulk was comatose at the time or something. And then when she wakes up, she learns that her cousin's death, and she wasn't able to deal with it. So her emotions, and she kind of hulked out further. And I had to kind of research that because I was like, why does She-Hulk look so different in this than the She-Hulk comics that I've read in the past or the TV show? She looks very different, and that's why. Mm-hmm. So I had to kind of have that better understanding as to why she looks the way that she did.
Gotcha.
The other thing I want to point out is Angela. Were you surprised to see Angela, a Spawn character, appear in this?
Not really.
Okay.
There was... I'm trying to think of what the name of the game was. There was one of those like MMO Marvel games that came out not too long ago. Sure. I think it was called like Marvel Heroes or something like that. Okay. But Angela was in it, and I'm like, why is she here? And then I realized like Marvel somehow acquired the rights to her and made her kind of like an Asgardian ish character.
Yes, and I've got a take on that as well.
Okay.
So Angela first appeared in Spawn number 9. She was created by Neil Gaiman.
Okay.
I know we touched on him in a recent Field of Geeks episode. We're not going to talk about that here. We're not getting into that part of it. She was an angel and a bounty hunter. She even had her own miniseries at Image. Now, there were some legal battles between Todd McFarlane, the creator of Spawn, and Gaiman over the rights to the character. It's a really long story. There is a YouTube channel out there. There's a YouTuber called Comic Drake, And he does an excellent video. It's like an almost hour-long video recapping all of these like back and forth lawsuits, where there was multiple lawsuits against Todd that I don't think he won really any of them. It eventually was settled. Gaiman won the rights to the character and then promptly sold the rights of the character to Marvel Comics.
Okay.
So she was introduced in 2013 in a story called Age of Ultron. In 2014 is when she was established to be Aldrich Odin's daughter, which is the long-lost sister to Thor.
Okay.
So she is now a sister of Thor. Here's what I don't like about that, especially in a series like this. You have a character that was an angel, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
And you put her into a series with the son of Satan. There's so much that you could do there.
Right.
You could play off one another so well when you've got Damon Hellstrom in the series and this angel.
Yeah.
But they've had already established her as
like Thor's
Asgardian.
Yeah.
And I really don't know that, in my own personal opinion, people will probably disagree. I don't think we need any more Asgardians necessarily.
I don't think we really do, because when you think of Asgardians, you probably think of the top three that come to my mind are Thor, Loki, and Odin.
Yes,
and then probably
you got
Heimdall,
the Warriors 3.
Warriors 3,
you
all
got,
them.
Heimdall. You've got Valkyrie, who is amazing. She's an excellent character on her own.
Yeah.
And so I didn't necessarily think that we needed a new Asgardian.
Well, and that's what I always liked about Angela's character, is that like Spawn was basically like a bounty hunter from hell kind of thing. She's a bounty hunter from heaven. You get that dynamic that works.
So I would have much rather. I think there was just so much cooler things we could have done with her and Damon Hellstrom, or any number of other Marvel characters, by having kind of maintaining that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if maybe there was something when the rights were sold off. Maybe there was something saying she couldn't be from heaven anymore. I don't know.
Yeah.
That I don't know. Anyway, other notable characters. We've got Blade. Blade's always dope.
Yeah.
I've always been a fan of Blade. We've got Spectrum, a.k.a. Monica Rambeau. I'm not too familiar with her. I've not seen
outside of the MCU, probably
I've not seen the Marvels movie. I know she was in Captain Marvel, right? But I'm not super familiar with the character as a whole. This is, I think, the first time I read about her in a comic book, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Winter Soldier. He doesn't really do much in this. I mean, he's just kind of there. But he's become an excellent character over the last 2 decades.
Mm-hmm.
Spider-Woman, who has grown on me over the years. In this issue, I feel that she is different to me than the one that we were introduced to back in like New Avengers #1.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's because maybe that version of her, I think, was a Skrull, and this is the real version of her.
Yeah, is this the Anya Corazon version?
This is the Jessica Drew
version. Okay.
Version of her. As far as I know, it's Jessica Drew. I think so. I could be mistaken.
Well, her powers, I think, are a little more like mystical based, so that kind of fits.
Yeah. She looks like the Jessica Drew Spider-Woman.
Okay.
Is where I'm getting that from.
Okay.
So I didn't read a lot of Spider-Woman. I know there was, I think, a Spider-Woman series. I didn't read a lot of Spider-Woman between 2009 Secret Invasion and this. So I know a lot can happen in 10 years.
Yeah.
So I was a little out of sorts with that one. Wiccan. I first met Wiccan in the Excellent Young Avengers series back in like 2005. I don't know if you've ever checked that out.
I haven't.
Fantastic series. I highly recommend it.
I've heard good things about it. Yeah.
Wiccan's cool shit, and he's engaged to Hulkling, who is a Skrull, and Hulkling is cool too. So I really like those characters. Mm-hmm. And then lastly, we've got Hellstrom, the son of Satan. Like his name implies, he doesn't stay dead for long. You'll see him back sooner than later. As I said before, I did not care for this issue at all, for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. I didn't even... I mean, I bought this entire series. I didn't even read this issue until the day I went to review it. And I had to read it like 2 or 3 times and be like... Because I read it the first time and I was like, man, did I really not like that? Because I usually can find... And there is some cool things in this.
Yeah.
And usually I can find enough cool things to where it doesn't deplete my overall enjoyment of it.
It's a little more like, compared to some of the newer ones we've reviewed on this show, it's very. I think it skips a lot. It's very like straight and to the point, but like you're kind of like, okay, wait, how did we get from there to here?
Correct. Yes. Yeah, I did not care for it. I did read every issue in this series, and unfortunately, in my opinion, it does not get any better.
Oh, okay.
Sadly. Now, here's a couple of things I did not like. Several of the characters, they kind of seem to like speak or act out of character a little bit. Like I mentioned, the Spider-Woman doesn't sound like the Spider-Woman to me. I don't expect her to be like super quippy and crack jokes.
Right.
And so all of that whole conversation in the interrogation room seemed just very out of place.
Right.
There was, because I think she refers to somebody as dude.
Yeah.
In it. And I'm like, that doesn't sound right to me coming from her. So I mean, it would sound right coming from Wiccan, who's like a tween, right? He's like a kid. So that was strange for me. Let's see, what did I have? The scene where they're sitting around the interrogation room sounded kind of forced. It didn't seem to fit, nor did I think it was funny. The whole premise, I think, is dumb. The idea that they couldn't include the Avengers didn't make sense to me. Where it's like, oh, if they don't know about it, they can't be infected by it, but you still have to be captured by these things to get taken over by them. Oh, but it gets in your head, but really does it? Like, it was just very strange.
Yeah, it was kind of like that. That's where it kind of lost me. It's like, as long as you're aware of it, you can be infected by it.
Yeah.
Something like that.
The fact that, this is the team that takes on the threats the Avengers won't, it's probably because whoever's writing the Avengers would recognize that this entire premise just doesn't work. While I didn't really care for it from a plotting standpoint or a characterization standpoint, other than Blade. I think Blade is cool. But everyone else is just kind of there. The art is good. I like the art.
Yeah.
Blade is cool. I've mentioned that. I think it's worth mentioning again. This title so badly wanted to be something else that it was not, and it just couldn't find its footing for me. I don't really know what it would be. The thing I want to mention with the writer, Teenie Howard, is because at one point I was like, maybe it's just. Do I not like her writing? Like, is it just her style? Whatever it may be. So I went back and reread. She did a Death's Head 4-issue series before this. I think it was before this. And I went back and reread that. I freaking love that. Like, it was cool. It was hip. It was
that was going to be my question to you, is if you'd read anything by her.
These are the only two things. I know she did a pretty lengthy stint on like an Excalibur series, but I didn't read any of that. I hadn't read any of that. I do have a question for you before we kind of talk a little bit about anything that came next. If you were to do a proper Avengers Dark, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Who would be your core 5 or 6 characters that you would have on the team?
I kind of tend to like look at Midnight Suns a little bit, but I would probably do. I'd have Blade on there. He would be a mainstay. Ghost Rider. Probably Doctor Strange. Trying to think who else kind of like fits that, like kind of more dark, mystical kind of thing. I'd probably keep Spider-Woman in there if she was written well.
Yep.
And more to her character. Sleepwalker would probably.
That'd be a good one.
Maybe. And then I'd probably want somebody. You'd have to have a mutant character in there too, just to round it out. And I don't want to say Wolverine because he just runs at stuff and claws at it.
Right.
Maybe like Scarlet Witch or something like that, but I think you already kind of have that with Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
So
and I think I would almost be afraid to write Scarlet Witch just because of how like
maybe to put like the mutant aspect of it, maybe do Emma Frost.
Okay. I could
because she has the like ties to like the Hellfire Club and stuff like that. She's kind of. I know that's not necessarily a mystical kind of thing, but yeah, those would probably be for sure. You would have to have Doctor Strange, Blade, and Ghost Rider.
Yeah, I would. So I would. I think Ghost Rider is a good choice. I would, if I was to do like just a 5, just like off the cuff of I think real fast, like, and then I also think of like just the Justice League Dark aspect of it. If this is like that Man Thing.
Oh yeah,
Man Thing.
Oh God, yes.
Ghost Rider would be choice. I do like Sleepwalker. I keep Blade. Keep Blade in there for sure. I would probably add in like Victoria Montesi from Darkhold Redeemers.
Ooh, yeah.
Think back to like the Midnight Suns stuff. I'd throw maybe her in. And it would be kind of fun instead of Ghost Rider, like a proper Ghost Rider, throw in Vengeance. So you kind of got like the Brute, character in there too. And then if I'm looking for like kind of I'd take Angela out. I'm not a fan of this characterization of Angela or this version of Angela.
Yeah.
Either I would reestablish her as something.
The original version of Angela would be a mainstay for me.
Version, yeah.
But yeah.
Or throw in Valkyrie or somebody like that. Like sort of that. Who is kind of a Wonder Woman archetype of sorts, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of what I would look at for a series like that. All right, well, let's talk about what came next. Now, unsurprising, I think, to anybody, because I'm probably not the only person that did not like this. The series, the title was intended to run longer than it did. I believe. It didn't last a year. It ended with issue 9. I think it was supposed to run 12 or 13 issues, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And it ended up getting canceled with issue 9. I'm actually surprised it didn't get canceled with issue 6. But
that could probably explain why they kind of skipped over some exposition.
Possibly.
I guess. But I kind of, at the same time, like, I don't want them to be, for first issue, I don't want it to be too wordy so that you miss out on the action. But I do want, kind of like when we talked about Guardians.
Yep.
How they, one panel explained all the characters, where they're from, why they're there.
Right.
Boom.
Right. 100%.
You're done.
Yep. Because that was one of the things, plotting wise, that didn't make sense to me is, they woke up. Okay. So in the beginning, we start with this prison, with this break into this lab. They take these vials, but they didn't take the vials. And the other characters are taken to the lab, but there's really no indication of. Okay, I got to think through that. It just doesn't make sense to me in my head. It's like, It's like how did not just the characters get it, the shapeshifters break into the lab, but then they drag these victims with them and then leave them and then they escape, and why and then they didn't steal. I don't.
What this reminds me of is when you have a director's cut of something and they take out things that would have made the film make a lot more sense.
Yes, 100%.
That's kind of what I get from this.
So I would be interested to see like what her script looked like versus what we ended up with, or what.
Well, and I think maybe
what editorial
it's
changed.
I think maybe too. It's maybe a little bit of like studio involvement. They might have been like, okay, we need to get this out, so maybe it kind of got rushed a little bit.
Could be, and that could be also too why you've got certain characters in there. Like, of all the characters, like Monica Rambeau is selected. Is it because there's a Captain Marvel movie that? When did Captain Marvel come out?
It was between. Probably would have been around that time because it was between Infinity War and Endgame.
Okay.
So it might have been around that time.
Yeah. So it could.
I kind of see what they were going for with this team.
Yeah.
Because you always have like somebody who's kind of like the no nonsense leader.
Yep.
The mystic, like the one that can just, throw shit at it. Yep. Pretty much. The brute, the brains, and then, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's kind of there's certain people in this team I would not necessarily replace, just take out entirely.
Right. 100%. Yeah.
So.
No, that makes sense. Unfortunately, it is a official Marvel publication, but to me, it kind of read like bad fan fiction.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough, I know it's all technically. I mean, it's all fiction. It's all
technically it's all
I'm
fan.
sure she's a fan.
Yeah.
I'm sure it is fan fiction of a sort, but
right.
It wasn't good fiction, in my opinion. Unfortunately, they can't all be winners.
Well,
right?
there are better books out there, but there's probably worse out there too.
Yeah. Well, hopefully next week's an improvement in terms of us enjoying the story. You'll have to tune in to find out. I don't even know what we're going to be talking about next week. I don't know. Yet. So, but thanks for joining us for another episode of the Number One Comics Podcast. Again, that's the only podcast that's dedicated to the discussion of first issues. Like I mentioned before, like and subscribe. You can also follow us on Facebook at the numberonecomicpodcast.com. If you are looking for us, if you're watching this, you've probably found us. But if you haven't found us and you want to find us, look us up on the Field of Geeks platform. Just type in Field of Geeks in Apple Podcasts or on YouTube. And as always, thanks to everyone at the Field of Geeks Network for helping us make this happen. Thanks to Raven X again for the music. We really appreciate it. And we will see you guys next week. Thank you, Bill, for joining me.
Of course.
Have a great night.